पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू। वाव!
2023 is not off to a great start, especially when it comes to the reputation of the ugly Indian traveller. The first week of this new year has been filled with mid-air clashes, Indian flyers making headlines for all the wrong reasons, embarrassing incidents of verbal and physical fights, full-fledged brawls among passengers, a rude passenger calling a flight attendant a servant. And then Air India has been trending when it emerged that on the 26th of November on a New York to New Delhi Air India flight, a Mumbai-based passenger under the influence of excessive alcohol unzipped his pants and urinated on an elderly woman, a co-passenger, a 72-year-old woman. What followed after? The crew's response, the handling of the matter was worse. Today, the Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekaran admitted that Air India's response to this drunk flyer urinating on a woman should have been swifter, that the airline fell short, that is a quote, of addressing the situation in the way that it should have. What's with the ugly Indian flyer? Why are we all so quick to fly off the handle? Why are airline spats becoming the new normal? And what are the systemic changes needed to avoid such situations in the future? Let's quickly dive into this show. We have Dr. Sugata Bhattacharjee first joining us. He's a co-passenger. He was on that plane. Doctor, you were seated by Shankar Mishra, the accused here, and it was clear to you that the accused was drunk?
Yes, Sarah, thank you for having me. One quick correction. It was a flight from JFK to Delhi, not JFK to Mumbai. And
yes, we said New York to Delhi.
New York to Delhi, yeah. So, yes, I was seated beside him. My seat number was 8A. He was seated next to me, 8C. And I was the part of the whole ordeal. Even though I did not see him urinating on the passenger because I was sleeping, but I woke up to him falling on the seat next to me.
When he returned, when he was made to go back to his seat?
No. What happened was, we were served lunch. The lunch is served about an hour of takeoff. So, and then I was speaking to him, and in the process of close to 40 minutes of the lunch, he had 4 drinks in a pretty quick succession. And he kept asking me the same question over and over again. You know, he asked me, what, by the way, do you have kids? What do they do? I answered. And then again in the middle, he said, do you have children? What do they do? Answer. So by the third time I understood that he is not holding his alcohol well. And he did say that, he was traveling, he was exhausted. But so when I finished lunch, I went to the galley, and after I washed my hand, I flagged one of the male steward who was serving the side where we were in, the left side of the business class. And I told, listen, buddy, I think he had way too many, and just keep an eye. And he smiled because response? He just smiled because, Sarah, you have to understand, typically you don't see this kind of a behavior from Delhi US flights.
You don't?
I have been flying for the last 10, 12 years, and I have never seen something. There will always be arguments about, if the seat is broken and all that, but a drunk
No, but
fool,
isn't this a situation of free alcohol being served, and people, because it's free, you don't know how to handle your alcohol, but you still keep drinking? But let me ask you, doctor, when you let them know, was he still served drinks after that, after you flagged this with the staff?
I think he was at least served one more drink.
After you let the staff know that he is clearly drunk and not able to handle his alcohol. Okay, let me ask you one other question.
He was not, I won't say he was clearly drunk, but he was incoherent would be a correct word.
Now, let me ask you another question. Many are wondering, we've heard and read so much about this, and we're all trying to figure out why, how did this happen? Like you said, it doesn't happen often. Why was she for example, we hear so much about why she was made to sit in that seat that was urinated on. Why, for example, could she not be made to sit in his seat and make him sit on the seat that he urinated on?
And you are spot on. So if the 2-page complaint I filed, which went nowhere, they just tossed it off, which I found out later, because had media not broken the story, nobody would have known. But I specifically wrote a 2-page complaint, and my complaint was not about the drunk passenger. You know how a drunk passenger handles his drink and everything.
Yes.
Let the authority take action.
Yes.
My complaint was the poor judgment call by the pilot. You have a 70 plus lady. She came. She was drenched in urine. I was standing there when 2 air hostesses wearing gloves cleaned her up, put her on the business class pajamas, and then I advocated for her. I said, "Unko koi aur seat pe bitha dijiye." And the senior lady said, "I can't." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I have to take the permission from the pilot." I said, "Go and ask the permission from the pilot." He said, "Well, the pilot in command is resting." Now, you have to realize in this kind of flights, because it's a long flight, they have 2 sets of pilots.
But let me ask you, logistically, sir, why was she not, for example, if they could not get her a seat, let's say no seats in economy, no seats in business, surely she should sit in his seat, in the dry seat.
And
logistically, why did that not happen? Could you explain to us, since you were there?
I don't know, and that is what made me angry. And they did, there was fault in multiple levels. First of all, when something like this happened, you separate the victim and the aggressor. So the ideal thing would be just bumping him down to some economy and giving a fresh seat to her. Instead, she, for good 20 minutes, they made her wait in the galley, and then they said, "Okay, we'll put multiple blanket on your seat and
shocking,
and make to say." Yeah.
Let me ask you lastly, doctor. When he woke up, I read that then he passed out because he was so drunk after this. When he woke up, he spoke. You're the first person he spoke to, right? And what did you understand? Was he scared? Was he apologetic?
When I went to sleep, and when I woke up, he had already sobered up, and the crew have already spoken to him. Okay. And his first thing was, and I quote, he says, "Bro, I think I am in trouble." And I said, "You are." But Sarah, what you have to understand is, the crew or the captain is in no position to mediate a situation like this.
Why?
And because it's a crime, and their job is to report the crime.
Yes.
And handle it to the appropriate
You're saying they
authority.
should not be mediating between them, not that they should not be mediating in the matter.
Exactly. And you cannot put a 70-year-old lady face to face with another young person and say, "Okay, you sort it out." She is already in distress. And
which is exactly what she said in her letter to when she reached out. She's saying, "I did not want to address him. I did not want to be anywhere near him." And they literally forced her to sort it out, as you're saying. Thank you so much, doctor, for joining us and for speaking up for her on that flight. I can only imagine how grateful she is to have you there. I want to just quickly try and begin.
I just want to say one thing, we as Indians are very proud, and Indian workforce is looked up very highly. So I hope no one should take a broad brush and paint us that all Indian passengers are unruly. We don't behave well. That is not the case. Yes, incidents happens, and incidents happens in all airlines. It's unfortunate we are having it in quick succession. But
all right, let's put that question across to actual staff who've dealt with this on an everyday basis. We have Amrita Ahluwalia, former air hostess with Air India. We have Devinder, who's a former jet cabin crew. And we have Neetu Shukla, who's in-flight service director at Kingfisher Airlines. So first of all, Amrita Ahluwalia, who's worked with Air India before, also known for saving the child bride Amina way back in 1991. Ms. Ahluwalia, thank you so much. You were lauded for your intervention. You, in that point, went beyond your job description. You went beyond the call of duty. When you spoke up, you stepped in and you saved the child bride Amina in 1991. The big upset here, Ms. Ahluwalia, is the fact that this staff at Air India did the absolute opposite of what you did. There was a lack of intervention by the Air India crew. There was really no humane response. They're like, it's your matter, I don't want to get involved.
It's really unfortunate. You know, the problem is the generation gap. In our time, they connected with the passengers emotionally also. And at least I can tell you one thing, that for me, they were the rest in my house. I would treat the aircraft like a temple. And people who were our passengers, we never took them as passengers. They were like friends. And if somebody was not eating, I was asked why they're not eating. Nobody will. Without eating or drinking a glass of juice at least from my flight. So, what we have now understood is the management's rules. They are making robots out of the cabin crew, but in this particular case, if you ask me thankfully, the blame lies with the commander.
The blame lies with the commander. All right. The blame. All right. Let's bring Devinder, who's been a former jet cabin crew. Could you please answer the question? Dr. Bhattacharjee has also talked about in his articles about there was a first class. Supposedly those seats were empty, and he advocated for this passenger, saying, "Why can't she be seated in first class?" And he sounds like he's in some babu's office. There was so much bureaucracy. Pilot is there. Someone is sleeping. Someone is not sleeping. Why couldn't the staff just not say, "Fine, yes, this is horrific"? You should just whoever it is.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, from my flying experience, we have reseated passengers in the first class. If there were issues beyond our control, and if it's a very long flight, you can't make the passengers sit on that seat where he's paid a premium, right, for a business class seat. So definitely an exception can be made, and the passenger can be seated in the first class.
Is it something? Would it have been held against the staff if they took this call on their own? If they didn't follow the the rules or go through the commander and get the...
No, for a situation like this, I don't think so, because the situation was very severe in terms of what the ladies went through, and beyond that, it's. Yeah. Being on a seat, it's like a human waste being disposed on a seat, and that could be leading to even communicable diseases. It is no point that a person can sit on
whatever
a
it is.
seat.
What if it's a mother with a young child who throws up, or what? I mean, if there's a seat, if you can help,
exactly,
why not?
that's what I'm
but
saying.
Let me ask you what Doctor talks about. Dr. Bhattacharjee says that supposedly the commander, and that's the pilot, was asleep, and he was explaining to us how there are two crews on these long flights. One is allowed to rest, one is awake. Is there a problem if you can't just ask the second commander?
Of course. So even if one commander is on rest, the commander who's heading the flight is the commander in charge for that duration.
I would assume, absolutely. I would think so.
There is
Neetu
Shukla, a pilot in command who goes on rest transfers his duties to the one who is
that would make sense logically to someone who's not in the industry. Neetu Shukla is a former in-flight service director at Kingfisher Airlines. As Dr. Bhattacharjee points out here, this lady in her complaint says that she didn't want to talk to this guy after everything that happened to her. She needed her space. She wanted whatever she wanted. She did not want to talk to him. But she was made to he was made to sit in front of her, and she was made to address him and listen to him, apologize, etc., etc. Please, can you explain to us how he was allowed to walk away from on landing by the crew after reportedly reaching a quote understanding with the other passenger? What are the rules? Can the crew take a call to be judge and jury and allow a passenger and a victim to strike bilateral agreements, or do you have to when there is a law that has been broken?
So there are different levels of disruption. This comes under level 2 of disruption. In such a case, no, they cannot mediate. And it doesn't make sense to mediate because if that is the level of seriousness of the act, then there is no mediation for such an act because this directly affects the safety of the aircraft. Like pointed out earlier, there are communicable diseases that can spread with such kind of unsanitary behavior. Irrespective, somebody flashing and letting themselves loose, this is unacceptable. So, no, after a level 2 of disruption, there is no mediation that can be done between the passenger and the perpetrator. And no, it defies logic. It just defies logic. My guess is they didn't want to get into the whole legal mess and they wanted to just go home and rest after the flight, because of which they didn't take any action. Or
It would have
maybe
been
because
easier
the
for them.
witness
So
had
otherwise they
written
would
a
have to
stiff
stay
one
back.
against
They'd have
the
to follow
captain
up.
they were trying to protect. Yeah. Or
Okay.
because the
But-
complaint was written by the witness against the PIC, maybe they were trying to save themselves.
Yes. And let me ask you, I just want to clarify one thing. If you're in the crew in business class, you're obviously more senior. You're not someone
Yes.
new. You should know, like you get
No.
priority to be in business class, right? You're not a fresher
Correct.
who's may
No.
not know the rules.
Absolutely not.
All right,
You
good
have
to clarify
be
that.
senior.
All right. The other important aspect everyone's talking about, we had Dr. Bhattacharjee saying that this is not the norm, like, this is not what the normal Indian passenger is like, which made me raise the issue about free alcohol and how we behave around free alcohol. Dr. Mahesh Reddy, chairman of ILFI, the National Council on Air Passengers, now joins us. Dr. Reddy, what is our alcohol policy on our airlines? And, what should it be after this? Is a change required? What's the policy right now?
Well, Sarah, first of all, congratulations to the media for the wonderful work that they have been doing on these particular issues. Unless the media has taken up this matter sternly, it wouldn't have got escalated to this level. It wouldn't have come to the, it would not even seen the light of the day. Having said it, when it comes to the overall policy with regard to not only alcohol, but the unruly passenger behavior and the in-flight services, and then the overall passenger rights or the interrelation between the airlines and passenger. Well, so far, though these kind of issues were kind of surfacing here and there, those were not kind of getting highlighted. As a result,
so what is the policy? How many drinks are you allowed? How many drinks is the passenger allowed if you're in business class, for example? And when, Dr. Bhattacharjee says he already flagged this off to the staff. This man has already had 4 drinks in front of him. He then goes up and tells his staff that, look, he's not being able to hold it. And then from what he says, he was served another drink.
Yeah, well, as such in the, what you call in the manual per se, it doesn't, limit on a particular one, but broadly the crew takes the call depending upon the kind of, the behavior of the passenger.
Okay, but I want to take, I disagree with you, sir, on one point where you said that the media has really taken up this matter. I believe that, perhaps we're focusing our attention in the wrong area. Like you have this gentleman who drank too much. He's not the first person to do this. Unfortunately for him, he did it on a flight. There are Indian men who drink too much and they're peeing all over our streets. And I'm sure people have peed over others, and it just happened in this case. Now we're hounding him. It's a media trial. He's being taken to jail for 14 days judicial custody. Is that going to change anything is my question when you say the media has, been very helpful in this case. Sarosh Damania is an aviation lawyer who is also, I'm told, speaking up or supporting Shankar Mishra, or at least giving us Shankar Mishra's point of view. Mr. Damania, let me ask you as a lawyer, if this were, once this goes to trial or goes to court, the fact that you have the Air India CEO saying that the airline staff should report any improper behavior on aircraft to authorities at the earliest, even if the matter appears to have been settled. The fact that the Tata Sons chairperson today has admitted that the airline crew's reaction was wanting, does that strengthen Mr. Mishra's case in court?
See, as far as the airlines is concerned, they should have, of course, followed the law at that point of time. They have failed to follow the civil aviation requirement, which mandates that the unruly passenger has to be separated from the victim. The unruly passenger may be not in a proper sense of mind or whatever may be the situation. he was supposed to be isolated by the crew. Crew has not done his job. Apart from that, now we see the captain and they didn't even think the issue was that serious to report to the pilot in command. The pilot in command is sleeping, so the crew don't think this is an important incident. Let the pilot sleep, it's okay, somebody's peeing on somebody, this is a normal, somebody spilled a drink on. So Air India has first of all not taken the incident seriously. They have not taken steps. They did not follow the law, first of all.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, of course, the judicial process which is concerned and as far as what the court has to say, of course, prima facie, the judge, upon seeing the case, police has sought for police custody and looking at all the facts of the case and circumstances, the magistrate who was hearing the matter has felt that a police custody in this case is not required. The judge's, of course, observation in the order was mainly all the sections which are involved are bailable section except one non-bailable section which is there, and because of the of course law will take its own course, trial will go on, law has to give justice, it's principle of natural justice.
All right.
Both sides have to be heard, and thereafter, of course, he has also filed his bail plea, which notice has been issued. In a case, if police custody was granted, he would have not been permitted to file a bail, but he has been given judicial custody, so magistrate found him fit.
I still have
that, and he has filed a bail, and the hearing of bail is now scheduled on the 11th. So let's see what is the outcome of the hearing, what's going to come. Of course, that law take its course.
Okay, we have Dilip Cherian, founder and consulting partner of Perfect Relations. He's an image guru. Dilip Cherian, look at the image of India in this week. Your response to all of this as you watch this?
Sarah, it's got less to do with just this incident. In general, the kind of unruliness and the kind of entitled behavior that you watch on a regular basis. I'm a frequent flyer on more airlines than I like to be, but watching passengers, the way, for example, deboarding takes place, it's a melee.
Yeah.
The fact is that we have actually accelerated the pace at which large parts of the country have access to airlines, but this does not apply to business class passengers. So that is a class of entitlement which is separate and of itself and which needs castigation and examination.
Yeah.
But it is not going to come by curbing the number of drinks, because at the end of the day, airlines are in a competitive business. So if Air India does not serve the drinks, you will find market share going to other airlines. So that's one thing.
Yes.
But I think that what has happened is that keeping the brand of Air India, keeping the brand of Tata's would have required very perfunctory rules which should have enabled the crew to make sure that they wake the captain up if he needed to be woken up, but anybody at the control should have been able to and authorized to say that, hey, let the lady have a seat in the empty first class.
Or at least
but I
till he
guess
wakes
that
up.
comes from the legacy of giving upgrades in Air India, which is a historic fact. I think it is a bit of an overburden of that.
Interesting. All right. We are completely out of time, unfortunately, but I have Captain Amit Singh still with us. So, Captain, please speak up for captains over here. You have, you hear about former pilots criticizing Air India for scapegoating this captain. Why should this captain not take accountability?
Well, the captain has to take accountability, but looking at the larger picture, it is the culture in the airlines, the safety culture prevailing, or rather the reporting culture. Why do pilots and crew not report? And it is an international phenomenon. Statistics-wise, 70% of the crew in US, as per the survey, when they have reported, no action was taken. So, though it is mandatory, they are at fault if they have not reported. But you have to look at the culture prevailing in the airlines. If the management doesn't back them, if they get isolated or get threatened by the passengers.
Why should they? Till now, we don't even know who the pilot or the crew is. We know who the assaulter is. We know his name. Why should we not know who the pilot is? Who was the crew here? The senior crew in this thing. Why should they be backed by the company in this case, sir?
So the company has to take a call. Look, if the pilots have informed the company, then if the company hasn't informed
haven't
DGCA,
even done that.
they
It's not as if
so
the
company
crew was
hasn't
assaulted
informed
by a
DGCA,
passenger.
So if the company hasn't informed DGCA, they are abetting to the crime. So the company hasn't even tendered an apology. They've just said, we regret, which means we feel sad something has happened. They haven't apologized. Nobody has apologized. That is the first thing the company is supposed to do.
Do you think taking them off the roster is enough?
No. Taking off the roster is basically that they are not being utilized for duty and they will be assisting in the investigation. It is not a punishment. So nothing has been done.
This is not the last. The investigation is on. Hopefully, it will be time bound. Hopefully, there will be a follow up, and we will try and do our bit to come back to this story. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. I know there were many speakers today, so we perhaps didn't get to go to all of you enough. But thank you for joining us on We the People.